Add to some mathematics in vocabulary. Vocabulary in mathematics. Add to some more vocabulary in mathematics, permutation, combination. Some more tools that I want to communicate so that you become richer in your application. See, one of the things, I'm assuming you understand the basics of set theory, notation, union and intersection, right? See, if there are two sets, a set A and a set B. There are two sets, a set A and a set B, right? And you want to find the number of elements in A or B. You want to find the number of elements in A or B. That's written as A union B. That's also called the number of elements in a set, is also called the cardinality of the set. Is also called the cardinality of the set. If you have to find the number of elements in A or B, that's referred to as A union B. A or B, right? That means all elements that they together house, right? What you do is, you say, all right, I'll add all the elements in A. I'll add all elements in A to all elements in B. You'll say, I'll add all elements that belong to A and I'll add all elements that belong to B. Now, while you do this, you have done an excessive counting. What you have done is, the elements that belong to A and B are included in A, are also included in B. So, these elements that belong to A and B are included twice. Therefore, you must subtract. So, you say number of elements in A and B, right? Say someone tells you, find the number of numbers, find the number of numbers up to 100 divisible by 2 or 3. Divisible by 2 or 3. Okay, so you designate the following symbols. N2, the number of numbers divisible by 2. These are number of numbers divisible by 2. There are obviously 50 numbers up to 100 that are divisible by 2. So that are 15 number. Now number of numbers up to 100 that are divisible by 3. What you do is, this will be, you take 100 divided by 3 and take the integer part of this. Take the integer part of this, which is 33. Integer part of this will give you 33. That will give you the number of numbers that are divisible by 3 up to 100, right? Now, in this count, number of numbers divisible by 2, 50. And in this count, 33. This will include number of numbers that are divisible. There would be certain numbers here that are divisible by 3. There would be some numbers that are divisible by 2 in this count, right? See, all those numbers that are divisible by 6 are included here as well as included here. That means those numbers are counted twice, right? Those numbers are counted twice. That means number of numbers that are divisible by 2 and 3 are included in this 50 as well as included in 33. Those numbers are included twice. Numbers that are divisible by 2 and 3. That means numbers that are divisible by 6. These are number of numbers divisible by 6. 6 would be integer part of 100 by 6, which is 16. Right? These 16 numbers are included in this 50 as well as included here. That means there is an overcounting. If I simply said 50 plus 33, this would include the 16 here as well as here. But you want to include it only once. So what would you do? Number of numbers that are divisible by 2 or 3, you say, is going to be number of numbers that are divisible by 2 plus number of numbers that are divisible by 3 minus the number of numbers that are divisible by 2 and 3, because this number is included here as well as here, but it should appear only once. So this you say n2, which you say is 50, n3, which you say is 33, and this is the excess count. This is the over counting that is done in this plus this. So you have to remove that over count, and that is 16. That will be the number of numbers up to 100 that are divisible by 2 or 3. And then if someone said number of numbers that are divisible neither by 2 nor by 3. Right? Okay. Now, how many are these? This is 17, 67. This is 67. Numbers are divisible by either 2 or 3. That means the remaining 33 will neither be divisible by 2 nor by 3. Isn't it? So those that are divisible neither by 2 nor by 3 would be the remaining numbers, that is 33 numbers. Yes or no? Right? Similarly, so I have included this, and then excluded this. Yes or no? So there is an inclusion involved here and there is an exclusion involved here, so as to accommodate the excessive count that I have carried out. Clear? Now, suppose there are 3 sets. Suppose there are 3 sets. There is a set A, there is a set B, and there is a set C. Right? Now, I want to find number of elements in A or B or C. These are number of elements in A or B or C. Alright. So first, very simply, I say I add the elements of A to all the elements of B to all the elements of C. I find all the elements in A, number of elements in A, I add to number of elements in B, then I add to number of elements in C, right? Now in the process, elements that belong to A and B, these elements have appeared twice, for example, right? Because isn't it? Elements that belong to A and B have appeared twice in NA and NB. In NA and NB, in both these elements have appeared, right? Twice. So I want to remove it once, right? So elements in A and B I want to remove once. Similarly, I want to remove elements in B and C because they have appeared twice. Elements in B and C have appeared here as well as here, but they should appear only once. So minus elements in B and C. Yes or no? Similarly, I should remove elements in C and A once because they have appeared twice, once in C, once in A. Now, see, these elements that belong to A, B and C, these elements, these are elements in A and B and C. Look, please. These elements have been included once here. They have been included once here. They have been included once here. Right? Yes or no? They have appeared thrice. But they have also been subtracted thrice because A and B include this set. So they have been excluded once. B and C include these elements. So they have been removed one more time. C and A and B I'm sorry, C and A. C and A, these elements have been removed one more time from this set, C and A. That means this set, which has appeared 3 times, has also been removed 3 times. Therefore, there is no appearance of this set anymore, this set of elements. So I must restore it. I must include it, restore it, right, Prince? So then I must restore elements in A and B and C. Right? Yes or no? So, included, excluded, included. Signs alternate. So, the first set of 3 elements, you know, these could be written, I want to write them as summation NA, which would be like NA plus NB plus NC in brief, right? These, because see, they are of the same variety, right? The second set, now the number of terms in this summation would be 3C1. There are 3 sets A, B, C. Taking one at a time would be 3C1. Taking one at a time would be 3C1 elements in this summation. 3C1 terms, so to say, in this summation. Right? 3 sets taking one at a time would be 3C1, isn't it? Now the second bunch of elements, second bunch of terms, these 3. These are like, I write them as minus N, A and B. Now, again, in this, so this would include all these 3. A, B, B, C, C, A. The number of terms here would be taking 2 sets at a time. Out of 3 sets, taking 2 sets at a time, therefore number of terms would be 3C2. 3C2 terms. Right? Confused kya? See, first of all, do you understand that these 3 terms are consolidated as one single summation of this kind? That means this tells you that I have included A and B, B and C, C and A. All pairs have been included. All pairs have been included. So now, if you have 3 A, B and C, how many pairs are there? 3C2, isn't it? So there will be 3C2 terms in this summation. A and B. Out of 3 sets, you take 2 at a time. So number of terms would be 3C2, isn't it? If you take 2 from 3. And then the last one is plus summation N, A and B and C. Now, this is taking all at a time. 3C3 terms. Therefore, just one term in this. Just one term in this. 3C3 terms. Now, yes. So the trend that you see is plus, minus, plus. There are 2 sets here. This becomes minus 1 to power 2 minus 1. There are 3 sets involved here. This will become minus 1 to power 3 minus 1. If there were 4 sets, it will become minus 1 to power 4 minus 1, and so on and so forth. Right? So if in a given summation you have pairs involved, then the sign before that summation is going to be minus 1 to power 2 minus 1. If you have 3 at a time, then you will have minus 1 to power 3 minus 1. Now for the last term, which involves all the sets, there is only one term, because, right, there is only one way you can involve all of them. So even if you didn't write the summation sign, it's all right, because the summation would be the same as this one single term, which is all. That means 3 terms means just one term in this summation, right? So now this principle is called the principle of inclusion and exclusion. This is called the principle of inclusion and exclusion. We'll call it the pi. The principle of inclusion and exclusion. Now, a generalization of this principle. Let me generalize this, which can be obtained from mathematical induction. And of course, what I just discussed would be kind of, will give you reasons to believe what I'm going to write next. Okay, can I wipe this off and generalize this principle of inclusion exclusion? Huh? I said, see, there was one term, there was one set involved in this summation at a time. So minus 1 to power 1 minus 1 will be the sign, plus. There are 2 sets involved in these terms, in this summation. the sign here would be minus 1 to power 2 minus 1. There are 3 sets involved at a time here. The sign here would be minus 1 to power 3 minus 1, and so on and so forth. If there were 4 sets involved at a time in the terms, then it's going to be minus 1 to power 4 minus 1, etc. Got me? Now, yes, which is what you'll see in the generalization of the sweetie pie. So if there were n sets, refer to them as A1, A2, A3, An are the n sets. And if I want to find the number of elements in A1 or A2 or A3 or An, number of elements in A1 or A2 or A3 or An, that from principle of inclusion exclusion pi is going to be, the first summation is going to be terms of the following kind: Na1 plus n. However, this n is not the same as this n. This just means number of terms. The number of elements, the number of elements in this set. Number of elements. This only means number of elements. This is the set subscript. An is the number of sets. Different, right? So the first summation would involve n A1, number of elements in A1, plus n A2, number of elements in A2, plus n A3, number of elements in A3, and so on and so forth, right? So that we write symbolically as n A1, which is taking one set at a time, number of elements in A1, plus number of elements in A2, plus number of elements in A3, plus number of elements in An. So if I have n sets and if I take one at a time, how many such terms would be there? NC1 terms. NC1 terms would be there in this summation. Right? Then I'll take a pair of terms at a time. Say A1, A2, A2, A3, A3, A1. Those kind of terms I'll take then. And how many such pairs can be there? NC2 pairs can be there, right? So the next summation would involve terms of the kind and number of elements in A1 and A2 kind of things. That means A1, A2, A2, A3, A3, A1. So if I have n sets and if I take 2 at a time, how many terms will be there in this summation? NC2 terms will be there in this summation. Right? Plus number of elements in A1 and A2 and A3. That means taking 3 at a time. So NC3 terms will be there in this summation. And the sign alternates. See, minus 1 to power 3 minus 1. NC3 terms. Going this way. And then you have a term taking R sets at a time. R sets at a time means, say for example, A1 and A2 and A3 and AR. These are taking R at a time. And if you take R at a time, the sign in this is going to be minus 1 to power R minus 1 for the generic term. And if you take R at a time, then the number of terms in this summation will be NCR terms. NCR terms. Going this way. Eventually you have the last term, which can come even without the summation. Number of elements in A1 and A2 and An. Right? And the sign associated with this is going to be minus 1 to power n minus 1. Right? And the number of terms in this would be NCN, that is just one term. Right? So this is called the generalized principle of inclusion and exclusion. Generalized pi. Principle of inclusion and exclusion. Right? Now it's a very powerful tool in counting, as you can see. You do a total count and then you remove the excess counts, you restore the count, You remove the excess count, restore the count. You keep doing that alternately to get the actual count, right? So a very powerful tool in counting, therefore. Now, let me give you an application around this principle of inclusion and exclusion. Classical age-old problem, one that involves, see, now you have WhatsApp and Facebook and SMSs and all of SMS, of course, now is outdated, but you know, so many ways to communicate. So they don't write love letters anymore. But way back, that's not what they did. You know, there would be letters written and there would be envelopes, addressed envelopes for those letters, right? So we look at a problem where there are n letters written by a group of engineers to n of their girlfriends, and those envelopes are addressed, right? So there are these letters, designate them as L1, L2, L3, Ln. These are the n letters, and their corresponding envelopes, addressed envelopes, are E1, E2, E3, En. That means E1 is the addressed envelope for L1, E2 is the addressed envelope for L2, E3 for L3, En for Ln. That means L1 is supposed to go in E1, L2 is supposed to go into E2, L3 into E3, Ln into En. Right? Now, the right way to do is L1 actually going into E1, L2 actually going into E2, L3 actually going into E3. That's the right way to do things here, right? And there is only one way to do the right things. Okay. In this case, now I want to figure out, so there is this devil who wants to cause havoc here, and he says, I'll make sure that no letter goes into the right envelope. No letter going into the right envelope. L1 would go into L3 for E3, for example. L2 would go into E1. All messed up. And there are many ways you could cause that to happen, isn't it? There are many ways you can cause things to be not right at all. So if no letter goes in the right envelope, then there would be nothing that went right, right? Now I want to figure out the number of ways in which I can cause nothing to go right, right? Now, I want no letter to go into the right envelope. L1 to not enter E1, L2 to not enter. I mean, it's possible. If you allow me to communicate for some time, then, you know, I will also listen to you and will also address your queries. So let me just spell out a few things and then your concerns will be looked into. Just a few things before. So I want nothing to go into the, no letter to go get into the right or the designated envelope, right? And it's a sophisticated problem of mathematics, but we need to figure out in how many ways we can do that. In how many ways we can have no letter going into the right envelope. Okay. Now when I talk of a way of designating letters to envelope, is like, say, L1 E1, L2 E2, Ln En. is one way of designating letters to envelopes. L1 has gone into E1 and this is the right way. Right? This is one way to designate letters to envelopes. There could be another way letters could be designated to envelopes, say L1 E2, L2 E3, L3 E1, L4 E4 say, L5 E6, L6 E5, and so on and so forth. Now, this, for example, is a case in which some letters have gone into the right envelope, right? So, if I list out all possible ways of designating letters to envelopes, there would be two kinds of cases. See, these are various cases of designating letters to envelopes, right? There would essentially be two kinds of cases. One, something like this, for example, in which one or more letters would have gotten into the right envelope, right? So, of all cases, there would be some good cases in which one or more letter would have gotten into the right envelope, right? A certain number of cases would be of this kind, where at least one letter would have gotten into the right envelope, right? And there would be some cases in which no letter gets into the right envelope, right? Gets into the right envelope. Now, we'll not get too devilish. We'll make sure that there is a letter per envelope, right? We'll not have an envelope with 3 or more letters. Okay, so we'll maintain sanctity to a certain degree, a letter per envelope. Okay, so if that be the case, then we have situations of this kind. One or more letter gets into the right envelope and no letter gets into the right envelope. Yes or no? So now, first of all, the easiest thing is all cases. All cases is like, these are n things to be permuted in these n spaces, and that can be done in n factorial ways. Yes or no? These are n things to be arranged in these n spaces, and that can be done in n factorial ways. Yes or no? Right? So all cases is about n factorial. There are total number of ways in which letters could be designated to envelopes. That means total number of ways in which these n things could be permuted in these n spaces. That's n factorial. That's the total number of cases. That's the easiest to obtain, right? What we are seeking is this. No letter getting into the right envelope is the objective. Mathematical objective. Right? So from n factorial, if I remove the number of cases in which one or more letter gets into the right envelope, then I get cases in which no letter gets into the right envelope. Yes or no? From a total n factorial ways in which the letters could be delegated to the envelopes, from this n factorial, if I remove those cases in which one or more letter gets into the right envelope, I get the total number of cases in which no letter gets into the right envelope. Yes or no? That's the blueprint that we will deploy to solve this problem. N factorial we know, and I'll find out the number of ways in which one or more letter gets into the right envelope. That'll give me the number of cases in which no letter gets into the right envelope. Clear? Okay. Let's say now some symbolism that I deploy. NA1 is the number of ways in which A1 gets into the right envelope. Now, when I say A1 gets into the right envelope, doesn't mean that others can't get into the right envelope. It simply means that A1 has gotten into the right envelope. Others may or may not have gotten into the right envelope, right? Number of ways in which A1 gets into the right envelope. So then, or rather L1, say L1, number of ways in which L1 gets into the right envelope. L1 is the letter, and number of ways in which L1 always stays seated with E1. Number of ways in which L1 gets into the right envelope. Let me designate that as NL1, right? Okay, now in how many ways can I depute L1 to E1? No. It's not about delegating L1 to E1. It's also about dealing with the rest of the envelopes. N-1 factorial. Because see, this whole thing is about delegating all letters to all envelopes, all letters to the envelopes. It's about delegating all letters to the envelopes in which L1 has gotten into the right envelope. So put L1 in the right envelope, put L1 in the right envelope, which is E1, and then permute these N-1 letters in these remaining N-1 spaces in N-1 factorial ways. In N-1 factorial ways, yes or no? So number of ways in which L1, at least L1 has gotten into the right envelope is put L1 in E1, which is one way, and then the rest N-1 letters could be delegated to the remaining N-1 envelopes in N-1 factorial ways. So this is N-1 factorial. Number of ways in which at least L1 has gotten into the right envelope, right? And do you realize this is also the same as number of ways in which L2 gets into the right envelope? Put L2 in the right envelope, and the remaining N-1 could be permuted in N-1 factorial ways, right? This is the same as the number of ways in which L3 gets into the right envelope. Is the same in general as the number of ways in which, say, some LK gets into the right envelope. Each will be N-1 factorial, yes or no? Right now? Okay. Similarly, number of ways in which L1 and L2 get into the right envelope. Absolutely, because put L1 in the right envelope, E1, put L2 in the right envelope. This you can do in one way, and the remaining N-2 you can permute in these N-2 spaces in how many ways? N-2 factorial ways. So number of ways in which L1 and L2 get into the right envelope would be N-2 factorial ways, which is the same as number of ways in which L2 and L3 get into the right envelope, and so on and so forth. Is the same as the number of ways in which some Lj and Lk get into the right envelope, and so on and so forth. Yes or no? Clear? Now, similarly, so this is number of ways in which L1 and L2 get into the right envelope. Which is the same as the number of ways in which L2 and L3 get into the right envelope, Lj and Lk get into the right envelope, which is N-2 factorial ways. Now, number of ways similarly in which L1 and L2 and L3 get into the right envelope, N-3 factorial ways, isn't it? Right? And so on and so forth. So this is in general is the same as number of ways in which some Li, Lj and Lk get into the right envelope. That's going to be N-3 factorial. L1, L2, L3, L4 get into the right envelope would be N-4 factorial. L1, L2, L3, Ln get into the right envelope. One way only. Number of ways in which L1 and L2 and L3 and Ln, all of them get into the right envelope would be just one way. Right? Now, once you understand this, what we are seeking is n number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3 or Ln get into the right envelope. Number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3 or Ln get into the right envelope is what we are seeking. That means at least one of them getting into the right envelope. What is this? Number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3 or Ln, at least one of them getting into the right envelope. This is what this means, right? This symbolism stands for number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3 or Ln. That means at least one of them. That means at least one of them. It could be more also. Getting into the right envelope. That means this would give me the number of ways in which at least one letter would have found the right envelope. L1, at least one. There could be more also, right? This is what the symbolism means. Are you all in tune with me? Yes, sir. Right. Therefore, can I wipe this off? Now, you pretty much understand where we are headed. The moment we are going to apply the principle of inclusion exclusion to this situation. That means number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3 or Ln get into the right envelope would be, from principle of inclusion exclusion, summation number of ways in which L1, that means this would be number of ways in which L1 gets into the right envelope plus NL2, number of ways in which L2 gets into the right envelope, NL1 plus NL2 plus NL3 plus NLN. So how many terms would be there in the summation? NC1. N sets taking one at a time. So number of terms here would be NC1 terms in this summation. And do you realize that the value of each of these terms would be n minus 1 factorial? We just discussed NL1 is n minus 1 factorial is also NL2. So there would be NC1 terms in this summation and the value of each term would be n minus 1 factorial. Right? That's the first term. The second term would now alternate in sign, would be minus summation NL2. L1 and L2. Number of ways in which L1 and L2 get into the right envelope, which is n minus 2 factorial. Right? So in this summation, you will have two sets at a time. How many terms would be there? NC2 terms would be there in this summation. There would be NC2 terms in this summation. And realize that number of elements in L1 and L2 is n minus 2 factorial. Number of elements in L2 and L3 is also n minus 2 factorial. And so there are NC2 terms in this summation, each of value n minus 2 factorial. Right? Similarly, you have plus L1 and L2 and L3. NC3 terms in this summation. And each of value n minus 3 factorial. And this will go on this way. Eventually, you have the last term, which is minus 1 to power n minus 1 summation number of elements in L1 and L2 and Ln. Yes or no? This would give you, this computation would give you what? Number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3 or Ln, that means at least one of them has gotten into the right envelope. Then n factorial minus this will give me the number of ways in which no letter gets into the right envelope. Yes or no? Yes, right? And therefore, time to wind up matters on this. Number of ways in which L1 or L2 or L3, that means at least one of them gets into the right envelope. NC1 terms, each of value n minus 1 factorial. So this would be NC2 into n minus 1 factorial, right? NC1 terms, these many terms, each of value n minus 1 factorial. The second one would be NC2 terms, each of value n minus 2 factorial. Then you will have NC3 terms, each of value n minus 3 factorial, NC4 n minus 4 factorial. Going this way, we eventually have minus 1 to power n minus 1. The last term would be NCn n minus n factorial, which is 1. Just to make it gel with the rest of the terms in looks, we write it like this. Okay, this is what it is, right? Now the denominator of NC1 would be n minus 1 factorial. It will dispense off this, right? This is n factorial by n minus 1 factorial by 1 factorial. The n minus 1 factorial sitting in the denominator will cancel the n minus 1 factorial sitting in the numerator. Yes or no? So this would be like a n factorial by 1 factorial, right? The second term, the n minus 2 factorial in the denominator would get cancelled with n minus 2 factorial sitting in the numerator there. So minus n factorial by 2 factorial. Similarly, n factorial by 3 factorial, n factorial by 4 factorial, minus 1 to power n minus 1, n factorial by n factorial would be the set of terms. Yes or no? Right? Now, so this computation will give me what? Number of ways in which no letter has gotten into the right envelope. At least one letter has gotten into the right envelope. This will give you the number of ways in which at least one letter got into the right envelope. So then, the total number of ways of putting letters in the envelope were n factorial. Total was n factorial. Therefore, number of ways in which no letter gets into the right envelope is going to be n factorial minus number of ways in which at least one of them gets into the right envelope, minus the number of ways in which at least one of them gets into the right envelope. So from n factorial I remove this. So this will turn out to be n factorial into 1 minus 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial minus 1 by 3 factorial plus minus 1 to power n by n factorial is what this will become. All the signs will change now. Now this is not E. E would have infinite number of terms. Right? So if there are n addressed envelopes for n letters, then the number of ways in which no letter gets into the right envelope would be this number, whatever it turns out to be. So for 10 letters to be put in 10 envelopes with no letter getting into the right envelope, put n equal to 10 in this entity and compute this. That will give you the number of ways in which 10 letters could be put all the wrong way in the envelopes, right? And so we are not arranging, we are actually deranging things. No letter getting into the right envelope is a derangement, No letter getting into the right envelope is a derangement of n things. This is referred to as DN, derangement of n things. Where all do you see derangement? The IIT campus, because as students, almost everyone at IIT used to wear Hawaii chappals, few microns thick, and invariably belonging to the same foot, both right or both left, and of different colors. The strap was invariably put together with the sole with the help of a safety pin. Now, till a few microns it was all right, but beyond a point, IIT Madras was really hot. So after the thickness went below a threshold value, your foot would start touching the genuinely hot ground, Okay, that's the time you feel you have to change your footwear. Now, you don't go ahead and buy footwear. So what do? No, you don't even steal. You go to the computer center. Now, at the computer center, this is the house where all derangement occurs. You have to leave your footwear out. Everyone has to. So once you come back, your footwear would be missing and you would be wearing someone else's footwear. The best choice. So that's one place where the derangement could occur, right? No person coming back with the same. So 20 people entering the computer center with a certain set and leaving with some other set. So D20 would be the number of ways in which that derangement could take place. Put n equal to 20. Right? That's what you did. Sometimes at temples also it could happen. You have to, devout devotee. You leave your footwear outside. You might end up wearing somebody else's, or somebody else might have worn yours. You might go without one. So it's an important concept, the concept of derangements of n things, which is this expression, and you want to remember this. Now, so this was a very powerful application of the principle of inclusion and exclusion. Let me illustrate one more on principle of inclusion and exclusion. Okay, but so far so good, right? It makes sense to all of you.